She was 11, holding a juice box like a shield, and her question stopped every biker around the grill cold. Do you ever kick someone out for being mean, even if they're family? By the time she told them why, the Iron Trace riders weren't flipping burgers, they were flipping the whole story upside down. The Saturday open house always smelled like hickory smoke and wet asphalt. The city had hosed the alley at dawn, and the August heat was already lifting the tar scent into the air. Iron Trace riders rolled back the corrugated gates of their clubhouse, hung balloons that looked ridiculous against rusted steel, and set up folding tables under a patched canopy. Kids from the neighboring block arrived first, chasing each other between chrome pipes, daring one another to touch the hottest exhaust. Brody, gray beard braided with leather cord, apron stretched over a belly earned by 30 years of road food, stood at the propane grill, flipping hot dogs that hissed like small animals dying. He liked community day. It reminded him the club could still be a neighborhood instead of a rumor. He flipped a wiener that curled like the roads he used to ride before cartilage became gravel in his knees. Still, he kept a small friend tucked under the napkins, just in case manners weren't enough. Sierra stepped through the gate soon after 11, according to the clock tattooed on Vince's forearm. She wore sneakers that blinked red when she walked, though one light had gone dark, giving her a limping strobe effect. In her left hand she held a juice box, grape, warm from the sun, straw already poked through. In her right, she carried nothing, but her fingers curled as if gripping an invisible rope. She surveyed the patio the way a person sizes up a stray dog. Is the tail wagging, or is the stare too still? Brody noticed her because she didn't smile. Kids either grinned like maniacs here, high on free soda and engine revs, or clung to parents' legs. This one did neither. She advanced until the toes of her blinking shoes touched the chalk line the prospects had drawn to keep children away from the bikes. Then she looked straight at Brody and said, "Got any mustard without the chunky stuff?" He laughed, passed a plastic sachet across the table. Smooth as a highway, kid. She took it, didn't squeeze, didn't leave. Her gaze drifted to the back of his cute where the top rocker read Iron Trace, the bottom rocker read Nevada, and the center patch carried a winding road that disappeared into a mountain. She traced the mountain with her eyes like she was trying to climb it. Brody flipped another dog. "You related to anybody here?" She shook her head, braids whipping. "My uncle used to ride. Kirk Lawson." The name hit Brody's spine before it hit his face. He kept his spatula moving, but the rhythm stuttered. Kirk, Reaper, forced out 15. Patch stripped at a truck stop outside Reno. Reasons filed under "Don't ask unless you want to bleed." He glanced toward Vince, who was demonstrating throttle control to a teenager on a parked Sportster. Vince felt the stare, looked up, read the knot in Brody's shoulders. Sierra spoke again, softer, the way kids do when they've practiced the sentence in the mirror. "Do you ever kick someone out of the club, if they're mean?" Brody wiped his hands on the apron, crouched so their eyes leveled. "Mean how?" She bit the straw. "Like, yelling when nobody else is home, taking your phone, locking doors so you can't get out." Her voice cracked on the last part, hairline fracture in a porcelain sentence. Around them, the cookout noise kept clanging, revving engines, mothers calling, but a pocket of silence ballooned between man and child. Brody felt the weight of it against his eardrums. "Even if they're family?" she added. And now the fracture widened, juice box trembling in her grip like it might explode. He wanted to say club business isn't kid business, wanted to hand her a cookie and send her toward the face-painting table. Instead he heard himself answer, "We got rules. Mean matters." The words tasted new, like he was translating a foreign oath. Behind him, Vince arrived without sound, just a shadow cooling the sun. He rested gloved hands on the table, voice low. "Who we talking about, bro?" Brody didn't look away from Sierra. "Kid says Reaper's back." Vince's jaw flexed, the way it had the night their treasurer overdosed in a motel. "That's so?" Sierra met his stare. Something fierce ignited behind the fear. He says the club taught him nobody backs down. But I'm tired of nobody backing me up. A prospect named Flip killed the music mid-song, sensing gravity. Conversations dimmed. Even the kids felt it, pausing mid-tag near the bikes. The only sound was the grill's flame licking grease. Hungry. Vince exhaled through his nose, measured, calm. What's your name, little warrior? Sierra. All right, Sierra. You hungry? She shook her head. Good. 'Cause right now we're gonna feed something else. He signaled Tiny, the sergeant-at-arms, who lumbered over like a refrigerator on legs. Clear the back room. No kids, no civilians. Patch holders only. Then to Sierra. Gently. You ride on the back of my bike before? Her eyes doubled. Mom says I'm not allowed. Today Mom's rules take a break. We're going 2 blocks, neighborhood speed. You hold the belt loops, nothing fancy. He offered his hand, palm up, the way you offer a wild bird a perch. She hesitated, placed her juice box on the table, straw bent, bleeding purple, then slid her tiny fingers into his giant ones. The club watched their president walk a child past the chalk line, past the bikes to his parked road king. He strapped his spare half-helmet on her, buckled the chin strap twice to keep it from swallowing her head. When he fired the engine, the potato idol vibrated through her sneakers, and for the first time that day both lights blinked red. Brody watched them go, felt the grill burn his palm, didn't move. He understood the moment had already scorched itself into club lore. The day a juice box asked the question that made 20 grown men choose a side. Around him, members quietly folded napkins, set down tongs, peeled off aprons. No one spoke the name Kirk. They didn't need to. The mountain on their backs suddenly felt climbable, but the path went straight through a child's locked bedroom door. As Vince rolled out, Sierra's arms around his waist, he caught Brody's eye in the mirror and mouthed 2 words. Church. Tonight. Brody nodded, flipped the remaining hot dogs onto a paper plate, then dumped the whole batch in the trash. Appetite gone. Somewhere in the distance, a grape juice box bled out on a picnic table, staining the wood the exact shade of a bruise. The back room of the clubhouse had once been a loading bay for a failed auto parts store. The corrugated door still bore ghosted white letters. Clearance. Everything must go. Tonight, the only thing clearing was the air, thick with cigarette haze and 20 years of unspoken history. Folding chairs scraped concrete as patched members filed in. No gavel needed. Vince's silence was louder than wood on wood. Brody arrived last, carrying a banker's box he'd pulled from the attic crawl space. Dust plumed when he dropped it on the pool table, a gray mushroom cloud that made Prospect flip cough. Inside, meeting minutes, incident reports, Polaroids of bikes and bruised women. The box smelled like mildew and old threats. Vince spoke first. Kirk Reaper Lawson patched 08, bounced 15. Club record says mutual parting. Tonight we find out who lied. Tiny slid a chrome flashlight across the table. Its beam became the room's only spotlight. Brody lifted the top folder, pages trembling like they remembered being afraid. First entry, Reno Charity Ride, 12. A bar tab signed by Reaper, blood on the receipt. Second, domestic call from a trailer park, complainant refused to testify, case vanished. Third, sealed envelope, Reno PD logo, paperclip to an internal club vote, patch retained, 5-4. Vince's jaw muscle jumped. He'd been a prospect then, hadn't earned a vote. Who voted keep? He asked. Brody's finger traced names. Rags, Deke, Horse, Slick, and he stopped. Merc. Merc sat in the corner, face shadowed by a beanie despite the heat. He raised a hand, not proud. Kirk had juice on the street. We needed product moved. I ain't proud, Prez. The shame tasted of copper. He swallowed it like a bullet he hoped would pass without tearing more gut. Vince didn't yell. He opened a new file instead. A photocopy of a restraining order granted in Utah. 14. Petitioner listed as A. Lawson, Kirk's then wife, now deceased. Cause of death, fall from second-story balcony, ruled accidental. Witness, unnamed minor. Brody felt the juice box weight settle in his gut. Sierra's mom is Andrea's sister, he said. Kid never met her aunt, but the trauma's in the blood. Across town, Pam parked her dented Civic in front of Sierra's rental house, kitten carrier on the passenger seat, prop for the lie she'd rehearsed. She wore civilian jeans, no club ink showing, hair tied back like any neighbor. The porch sagged. Someone had kicked the lattice overnight. She knocked gently. Sierra's mom, Marissa, opened the door 2 inches, chain lock still engaged. Eyes puffed, voice hoarse. We're not buying anything. Pam lifted the carrier. Found this under my truck. Thought maybe it's yours. Plaintive meow. Marissa's face softened. Survival instinct for small things. She undid the chain. Inside, the living room smelled of citrus cleaner and fear sweat. Curtains drawn midday, television on mute, a baseball bat leaning beside the couch like an ugly vase. Sierra sat cross-legged on the carpet coloring a unicorn black. She looked up, recognized Pam from the cookout, offered a conspirator nod. Pam set the carrier down, scanned the hallway. New deadbolt, exterior mounted, keyhole on the outside. Cute kitten, she said, voice casual. Mind if I use your bathroom? Marissa hesitated, then pointed. Pam walked past Sierra's room. Doorframe splintered where a lock had been forced in, now replaced by heavier hardware. Inside, mattress on floor, sheets twisted, phone charger cut clean with a knife. No phone. Back in the living room she knelt, scratched the kitten's ears. You know, county shelter offers free counseling for families adjusting to new pets. Stressful transition. I could leave a number. She slid a business card onto the coffee table. Iron Trace Community Outreach, confidential, 24/7. The logo was a winding road disappearing into a mountain. Marissa's lip trembled. He'll be back by 6. He doesn't like strangers. Pam met her eyes, spoke low. Strangers are what you've got left. Lock your bedroom from the inside tonight. If the knob doesn't work, wedge a chair. We'll be on speed dial. She left the kitten, carrier, and a packet of legal forms tucked beneath a towel. At the clubhouse, the flashlight battery dimmed as stories stretched. Prospect flip, real name Luis, juvenile record for boosting cars, stood to read the last document. An email from a Reno charter secretary, never answered. Subject, Reaper sighting with rival club, guns exchanged. Date, 2 weeks ago. Vince closed the box. We wear leather, not badges. Still, the wall we form tonight is flesh and bone. He looked at Merck. You still got Reno contacts? Merck nodded. Some. Make a call. Confirm he's peddling again. If he's armed, we treat this like an arm's-length transaction. No club colors, no traceable heat. Tiny cracked his knuckles. And when we find him, we give him a choice. Leave state tonight, never contact family, or we unseal every document in this box and hand it to a DA who owes us a favor. Brody exhaled. And if he refuses? Vince's smile was thin as wire. Then we remind him why the mountain on our backs has no off-ramp. He touched the box lid once, gentle as a coffin, then walked out without looking back. Some doors you close with your spine, not your hands. Meeting adjourned by collective standing. The flashlight finally died, but enough moonlight spilled through the bay door to guide them out. Brody carried the box to his truck, felt the pages shifting like restless ghosts. He thought of Sierra coloring unicorns black and wondered if color was a prophecy or a plea. As he slammed the tailgate, his phone buzzed. Pam. Mom's ready. Paperwork signed. Need escort to courthouse 8 a.m. He typed back, We'll be there. Bring the kitten. Behind him, Merck lit a cigarette, smoke curling around the faded clearance sign. For the first time in years, the words felt like permission. Everything must go. Lies, loyalties, and the man who mistook family for property. Courthouse dawn smelled like wet marble and sprinkler water. The Iron Trace convoy idled 2 blocks away, engines ticking cool in the pink light. No colors showing, denim jackets turned inside out, patches tucked into saddlebags like contraband. Brody checked his mirror. Pam's Civic behind him, Sierra and Marissa crouched in the back seat under a quilt printed with cartoon astronauts. The kitten, now named Orbit, mewed inside a canvas tote. No bikes in front of the building, Vince's rule. Court scare easy, he'd said. We arrive quiet, leave quieter. Inside the lobby, fluorescent hum swallowed boot heels. Pam guided the small family through security while the club waited on granite benches, pretending to read pamphlets about jury duty. Merc wore bifocals he didn't need, flipping pages upside down. Tiny filled a plastic cup at the water cooler. 3 sips, tossed, filled again. Nerves disguised as thirst. When the clerk called Lawson versus Lawson, Marissa's knees buckled. Brody caught her elbow, whispered, "Today the law rides shotgun." The hearing lasted 43 minutes. Judge Ramirez, a former JAG lawyer with a dragonfly tattoo peeking from her cuff, reviewed the temporary protection order, noted the sealed club documents Pam had submitted, redacted to protect sources, and granted a 1-year stay away, custody transfer filed, child advocate assigned. She also signed a paper that kept anything louder than words out of Kirk's hands. Gavel cracked like a starter pistol. Sierra exhaled so hard her astronaut quilt slipped off her shoulders. Stars and moons drifted to the floor. They exited through a side door used for jurors, avoiding the main steps. Outside, morning traffic had thickened, delivery trucks double-parked. That's when Flip, stationed at the corner with a newspaper and an earpiece, spoke into the mic clipped under his collar. Target southbound, on foot, 2 blocks, black hoodie, gym bag. The convoy tensed but didn't rev. Vince's earlier order clear. No circus in front of the courthouse. Instead, Merc started his Heritage Softail, coasted engine off down the slope, disappearing behind the Hall of Records to intercept. Kirk never saw the net tighten. He was pacing the sidewalk opposite the main entrance, expecting Marissa to emerge frazzled and alone, unaware the order had already been served electronically to his last known email. When he spotted Sierra's head through the Civic windshield, he stepped off the curb, just as Merc rolled up beside him, still engine silent, and said, "Need a word, brother." The word brother came out flat like a round that jammed. Kirk's eyes darted, calculating angles. His hand slid toward the gym bag slung across his chest. Merc shook his head once, slow, almost sad. "Don't," he warned. Across the street, Tiny appeared on the courthouse steps, arms folded, blocking line of sight to the family. 2 uniformed deputies lingered near the metal detector, hands relaxed but eyes sharp. Pam had tipped them with coffee and courtesy earlier. Kirk read the tableau, recognized the geometry of defeat, let his hand drop. They walked together, Merc pushing his bike, Kirk flanked, into the alley where dumpsters provided privacy. Vince waited, leaning against the brick, no shades, eyes cold oatmeal. "You got 2 choices, Reaper. Hear 'em once." He offered the envelope. Inside, a bus ticket to Denver dated today, cash equal to 3 months' honest labor, and a letter from the Reno DA indicating willingness to reopen the sealed file if Kirk remained in-state. "Option 2, Vince continued. "We dial 911 right now. Deputies cuff you for violating a fresh protection order, and the bag you're carrying becomes evidence. Your call." Kirk's bravado flickered like a bad bulb. "You can't banish me. Blood is blood." Vince stepped closer, voice barely wind. "Club's thicker. You made that true the day you used our name to scare a child." He nodded toward the gym bag. "Open it." Inside, steel that answered every scream before it left the barrel. Tape thick enough to gag memory. A burner phone still warm from last threats. No toiletries, no clothes. Intent packaged in nylon. Kirk's shoulders sagged. The alley smelled suddenly of spoiled fruit and exhaust. He took the envelope. Bus leaves at noon, Vince said. Merc rides you to the station, buys your ticket, watches you board. You get off before Denver, we hear about it, and the next conversation won't include words. At 11:58, Greyhound 784 pulled from the downtown bay. Merc texted a single thumbs-up emoji to the group chat. In the courthouse parking lot, Sierra sat on Brody's rear fender eating a cereal bar, legs swinging above the chrome. She asked if the kitten could ride in his saddlebag until they found a proper carrier. Brody winked, produced a hand towel printed with the club logo, lined the bag, lowered Orbit inside. The kitten purred louder than the idol. Marissa signed the last page Pam handed her. Enrollment forms for a women's shelter tech program, funded partly by Iron Trace charity runs. She paused at the emergency contact line, pen hovering, then wrote, Brody Kincaid. Relationship, friend of the road. Her handwriting trembled but stayed inside the boxes. They rolled out in pairs, no parade, just commuters now, turning jackets right side out once they crossed the city limit. Sierra rode pillion with Vince, arms circling his waist, helmet comically large, visor reflecting the mountain patch on his back. At the first stoplight, she tugged his sleeve and shouted over idle pipes, "Does the club ever keep people out for being brave?" Vince laughed, rolled on the throttle, and decided that line would go into the bylaws proposal tonight. New clause, Article 7. Courage is admission enough. Behind them, the courthouse shrank in the mirror, its pillars whitening under climbing sun. Somewhere west on I-80, a bus carried a man stripped of patch and pretense. Inside his pocket, a single bus ticket and a warning scrawled on the back of a court docket. Stone keeps receipts. Walk gentle or it cashes in. October slid in on a breeze that smelled of pencil shavings and burnt clutch. The clubhouse lot was quiet at 3:30. Bikes nosed against the curb like horses dozing after a long trail. Inside, Joe, treasurer, seamstress, and undefeated chili champion, had shoved the pool table aside and laid out a square of quilted flannel the color of dawn. On it rested a fresh-cut phoenix patch. Crimson wings, gold thread rising from gray ashes. Outline sketched by an 11-year-old who insisted the bird should wear tiny sunglasses. Sierra sat cross-legged on the tabletop itself, sneakers dangling, one light still dead, the other blinking to its own slow heartbeat. She bit the tip of her tongue while guiding fabric under the humming needle of Joe's vintage singer. Brody watched from the bar, nursing coffee so black it reflected his scars. Every few stitches Sierra paused, asked if the curve looked brave enough. Brave ain't perfect, Joe told her. It's just unwilling to quit. Behind them, the prospect wall had gained a new frame. A photocopy of the permanent protection order, dated and stamped, pinned beside a Polaroid of Orbit, the kitten asleep inside a spare helmet. The caption, in Flip's neat block letters, family comes small too. Marissa arrived at 4, driving the same Civic but with new hubcaps donated by a bike shop that owed the club a favor. She carried a plate of oatmeal cookies still soft in the middle, her first attempt at normal since the courthouse. She set them beside the register without fanfare, accepted a quiet nod from Vince, then retreated to a barstool where Pam waited with 2 sodas and no agenda. The women clinked bottles, the sound small but metallic, like a distant gavel finally resting. Vince called the room to order without raising his voice. Habit now because Sierra's head lifted whenever he spoke. Bylaws vote, he said. Article 7 edition. Moral conduct clause. No member, retired or active, shall use club name or insignia to intimidate minors, partners, or family. Violation equals immediate forfeiture of patch and lifetime ban. All in favor. A chorus of ayes, 1 abstention. Merc, who rubbed the spot on his cut where thread once held a road name now condemned. The motion carried. Vince signed the ledger, then handed the pen to Sierra. "You put the period." She did, dotting the I in family so hard the paper dented. It landed like a period on every nightmare she hadn't told her mother. Outside, the elementary school bus wheezed to the corner. Sierra's ride usually, but today the club had arranged a different dismissal. A police-escorted walking field trip ending at the clubhouse gates. 27 fifth graders spilled onto the sidewalk, teachers flanking, curiosity louder than the idling engines. They were met by Flip and Tiny, who demonstrated helmet safety. Let each kid rev a stationary Sportster with the kill switch engaged. Laughter ricocheted off corrugated walls. Sierra stood on the top step, Phoenix patch now sewn onto a child-sized denim vest Vince had ordered cut from an old pair of chaps. She didn't wave for attention. The others found her anyway, circling to ask if the bird really glowed. She shrugged, but her grin said sunrise. Brody slipped outside carrying a cardboard box. Inside, juice boxes, grape only, straw already pierced so no one struggled. He handed them out like communion, saving the last for Sierra. She took it, then surprised him by trading half her cookie for his drink. "Fair swap," she declared. He ate the cookie in 2 bites, tasted cinnamon and second chances. At 5:30, the sky shifted to copper. Parents arrived in minivans and on front lawns, snapping photos of kids wearing borrowed bandanas, posing with bikes bigger than their dreams. No media, no mayor, just a neighborhood learning that leather can be soft if you treat it right. One mother approached Marissa, whispered thanks for the self-defense flyer tucked in her daughter's backpack last week. Marissa simply pointed to the Phoenix on Sierra's shoulder. "Ask her," she said. The mother did. Sierra answered, "Courage is contagious. Pass it on." As dusk pooled, the bikes lined up for an honor lap around the block. Engines kept low, headlights dim, a rolling lullaby. Sierra rode pillion with Brody, arms loose now, trusting the road. They passed her old house, windows dark, for rent signs stabbed into the yard. She didn't look away. The Phoenix on her chest felt warm against the wind. Halfway down the street, she raised one hand, palm open, letting the breeze push against it like a promise being signed. Back at the clubhouse, the last cookie crumb was swept, the singer covered. Vince locked the gate but left the fairy lights on, tiny bulbs tracing the mountain patch in electric blue. Inside, the juice-stained table bore a new engraving, tiny letters carved by Sierra's pocket knife that first night she stayed late. "Mean stops here." Brody poured a shot of well whiskey, set it in front of Merc. "To the road we don't ride again," he toasted. They clinked glasses, drank, and Merc left the empty on the bar. A transparent apology accepted without words. Sierra curled on the couch, orbit nested in the curve of her knees, denim vest still on. Joe covered them both with the astronaut quilt. Before sleep tugged her under, Sierra whispered to the room, "I don't need to ask anymore." No one answered. They simply kept watch, engines cooling outside like large hearts slowing after a long run. Tomorrow would bring spelling tests, grocery lists, oil changes, ordinary gears of living. But tonight the mountain patch on the wall reflected in a child's peaceful eyes, and the legend inked beneath it finally breathed, as if the mountain itself exhaled. The road goes forward, and no one gets left in the dust. If a single whisper from an 11-year-old can redirect 20 Harleys, imagine what your voice could do tomorrow. Would you have the guts to ask the uncomfortable question, or to answer it? Drop your thoughts below, ride over to subscribe, and share this story so no kid ever has to stand alone at the fire pit again. See you in our next video.